conclusion of the press conference. Again, we'll have just very little time to answer a few questions that some of you may have regarding the case and any new developments. Sheriff?
Hi again. Sorry to keep dragging you folks back, but as I promised, we've come up with some substantial information that I think you folks should know about. We had information that was recovered during the autopsy of our person. We found a 2-page handwritten, and I'm going to call it a manifesto, detailing his projected activities pertaining to the day's events. The reason for these projected activities, I want to make this very clear. He had gotten kicked out of a study group and was upset with one of the students, and apparently took his anger to the extreme level. He, in his note that we found today on his person during the autopsy, it details from the time of starting in the morning to what he is going to do. He talks about going into the classroom and actually taking the students and handcuffing them with the zip ties. He also talks in his manifesto that he is going to have one of the students help him zip tie. And further reading, this was not going to be a voluntary act on the student, because he actually quotes in there's like he's got a script. All right, and he says your 7 minutes is almost up. Get done. Then he's telling the person in quotes, the other student, to zip tie his own hands. So he had a pretty elaborate idea of what he wanted to do. The petroleum jelly. We all know about petroleum jelly. Well, we know that its capabilities. However, it looks like his intention for the petroleum jelly was to cut a hole in one of the bags and squirt the petroleum jelly on the floor as a kind of a slip and slide. He was going to kind of use that to make an entrance problem for anybody that came into the room if they got that far. And that's how it read. He goes on to say that he's going to ambush a police officer, try and get their gun. He further says during his manifesto he's got a couple other students that he's upset with, apparently because of the prior activity. Talks about these things. So he was planned out. The evidence that we recovered from his backpack was pointed out in his manifesto as to what he was going to do with it, and which was right in line with what we had anticipated. I want to make sure. Again, I was talking with the FBI this evening. There is still nothing to indicate anything, and I mean anything, that this is other than a teenage boy that got upset with fellow classmates and took it to the extreme. We've all had that kind of thing happen. So, having said that, we have nothing to indicate any other reason, but we do now have a motive. And we also have a detailed plan of what he had attempted or thought he was going to do that day. The fortunate part is that we had some intervention with citizens, with students, with a construction worker. His plan went haywire because people fought back. And that was his bad luck. The fortunate part is that we got some very brave students. We have a very brave construction worker that stopped this from going on. He got so befuddled at the activities that had happened, it took his script away from him, and I think that that's what happened. We are very fortunate that the occurrence happened. We're so fortunate that the professional police officers that work for UC Merced were on the job and took care of this action. When Chief Vasquez was talking earlier, this thing from start to finish was probably less than 2 minutes. What a wonderful testament to the professionalism and the capabilities of that police department out there. They had this in control, neutralized before the first outside unit got on scene. I think at this point, we're continuing the investigation, but we now have a motive, and we do know that he had a script that he was going to try and follow, and the very fortunate part is that didn't follow through for him.
Sheriff, where on his person was his manifesto? Where on his body was it?
That part was not shared with me. It was just indicated that it was in a pocket.
Sheriff Eric Rosales from KMPH Box 26. talk to me a little bit about, he specifically named some of the students on there along with the police officer?
He didn't name any police officer. He just said police officer grabbing their gun. He did have some students named by name, okay, and I'm not going to release that. But he had specific individuals that he was upset with. And like I say, it didn't happen. The end result, I think, came to a conclusion that prevented anybody else from being injured. So,
can you talk about how he planned to attack these people and how much death he intended to inflict?
I think his intention was pretty substantial. I think his capability, it's kind of like when you're having a dinner, well, your eyes are bigger than your stomach, kind of a thing. I don't think he had any actual capabilities of carrying this out. I think he had visions of grandeur. Didn't happen.
With the night vision goggles and everything, it seemed like that he was going to stay, was it maybe stay inside that classroom and commit more mayhem in there?
It from his manifesto, it actually read that he was going to leave there and go do other tragedies on campus. Okay, so he had a pretty elaborate plan. And your question about his planning to die, I don't know that he planned to die, but the way it read is he knew he was going to be confronted by law enforcement, and so just by the way it read, that he planned on confronting them too. So there's a very strong possibility that he did, but it did not say that, oh, I plan on dying. But just he knew he was going to be confronting law enforcement. Talked about being calm, and this is based upon the fact that he might have one of the officers' guns. Didn't happen.
Can you elaborate on what other places he was going to go after?
Just other places on campus. And
library?
He mentioned the dorms. Okay.
Can you
Yes.
say what the script was going to say when he was going to call law enforcement? He had some kind of script.
He did have, and it actually said in parentheses, whisper, there's a man in here who's acting crazy. He's got a pocket knife. Oh my gosh, he's coming towards me. And then hanging up, and then it talks about trying to ambush the officer when he got on scene. So, again, because of a lot of things that happened, I'm very grateful that the circumstances were such. So this has a lot better ending than his intentions were, and because the system actually works. I want to reiterate something that the Chancellor had said earlier. She is very concerned about the welfare of the students at UC Merced, so much that I think she thinks of the several thousand kids as hers. And she's doing everything she can to make sure that their well-being is taken care of and to assure them that this is actually still a very safe campus. And just by the way this thing went down proves the point that it is still a very safe campus. These officers, the faculty, it obviously, the system works.
In the earlier, was the first stabbing victim named in the manifesto, and was there any reasons why he was named?
I'm going to say that he had people named, and as far as the sequence of events, I'm not 100% that the first stabbing victim was his direct intended and target. It's not to say that it wasn't, but I'm not 100% convinced, so I'm not going to share an opinion about it.
Sheriff, were there references to Allah in the manifesto?
There was a few references to Allah, and I wanted to tell everybody, as me being a Christian, it would be like me referencing the Lord Jesus. If I'm going to go do something silly, it doesn't mean that I'm anything other than I've got a belief in a higher power, and his belief was in through the Muslim faith, and but there's still nothing to indicate that there was anything other than that.
Can you talk about the prior incident with the study group and possible prior police contact?
I'm not 100% on that because obviously this is through UC Merced Police Department, and for me to comment on that I think would be reckless. If there was in fact a prior police contact with UC Merced, it has not been shared with me, and if they did, I'm sure that they're taking care of the situation as we're talking right now.
So this was a study group for this class?
Correct. Correct.
Was this a recent development? He'd been recently kicked out of this?
You know what? There wasn't again, hasn't been referred to me as far as an actual time. It was just in the recent past that this had gone on. And it had enough time span that some of the stuff that he had actually had in his backpack, he'd ordered online and had it delivered to him.
Sheriff, now that you guys have this manifesto and you have what appears to be a motive here, what's next for investigators? What are you still working to find out? What do you guys hope to accomplish?
We're wanting to make sure that when we're done with our investigation that we're 100% sure that every stone has been turned over, every witness has been talked to, every piece of fact that's available has been relayed to us. When we finally say that it's been concluded, we're 100% sure that it's done. So, again, this is really ongoing. This is the first day after this tragic event, and the fortunate part is we were able to come up with a motive so that folks are not hanging in the wind pertaining to why or the reason that they think that this fellow was doing what he's doing. He was a teenager. He got mad and took it out this way. There's been other ones, a teenager got mad over a dating problem. We don't know what's going to trigger, and we don't have a crystal ball to say, oh my gosh, if I upset a student, if this is going to happen. We don't know. The human person is a very unpredictable being, and we just deal with the problems when they arise. And sometimes you can't tell when something bad's happened. Obviously, this is one of those incidents.
Is there evidence to show that he had been trying to obtain another weapon, any kind of...
No, there was nothing in the manifest other than the fact that he had made reference to taking one of the law enforcement officers' sidearms.
Any reference to terrorism at all?
None.
Or any terrorist group in his manifesto?
No, we had an upset teenager that was upset because he got kicked out of a study group. Okay? Again, I know that with the heightened global awareness of this and the recent statement that was made earlier with regard to an extremist group praising this young man, you got to remember they're an extremist group for a reason. They want to bring fear, and they're going to use any tool that they can. The unfortunate part is they're using this one, and I think it's because of his faith. You got to remember there's a lot of Muslim faith that are very kind, gentle, loving people, and to have one person come and do this, you can't group that whole section of folks into that. It's just not right. And we, as a society, need to make sure that we understand that.
Did the autopsy reveal anything else?
No. Just that my understanding is just from the gunshot wounds.
How many times was he shot, and was it both officers that shot him or just one?
That's, again, that's going to be revealed through our report that we have to give to the UC pertaining to the officer-involved shooting. So that report's going to be given to them, and it'll be up to them as to whether or not they're going to release that. We've been asked to investigate the officer-involved shooting, and that information will be given to them for their dissemination if they need to.
But did the autopsy reveal how many times he had been shot?
Probably.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Okay, we're going to conclude. This wraps up our evening. I appreciate you guys coming back. As my promise to you,